I always tell people that I think horses have given me every good thing and good person in my life. Have they've really given me everything, and anything that I have in my life today at 31 years old, I swear I can trace it back to a horse.
Hey, y'all, and welcome. You're listening to the Cowgirl Confessions podcast. I'm your host, Dakota Dawn Johnson, small-town cowgirl with Southern roots, blazing a trail as a Midwest ranch wife, mama, and businesswoman. The mission of Cowgirl Confessions is to share the wonderfully wild and Western life stories of cowgirls from all walks of life. We'll talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to navigating careers, cowboys, kids, and cattle. Legendary cowgirl Dale Evans said it best. Cowgirl is a pioneer spirit, a special brand of American courage. The cowgirl faces life head on, lives by her own lights, and makes no excuses. Cowgirls take stands. They speak up. They defend the things they hold dear. A cowgirl might be a rancher, a barrel racer, a bull rider, or an actress, but she's just as likely to be a checker at the local Winn-Dixie, a full-time mother, a banker, an attorney, or an astronaut. If you're into wet saddle blankets, talks with God, buckets full of laughter, and the life lessons learned in the process, kick off your boots and settle in. I pray these stories encourage, empower, and give you just the leg up you need. Here's to embracing the cowgirl state of mind, no matter how wild and Western life may get along the way. Welcome to this episode of the Cowgirl Confessions podcast, friend. This episode has been a long time coming. Today's guest, Loryn Cook, is my dear friend and one of the cowgirls that has been part of bringing this podcast to life since the very beginning. Loryn is an entrepreneur that owns and operates a full scope marketing and media agency and just has an incredible background, very in depth with horses. And I mean, just I can't say enough things about the type of cowgirl that she is. Her roots run deep, and this is what I pray is the first of many episodes to come in 2024 and beyond with Loryn and I, because she is such an integral part of what I do with my personal brand, Dakota Dawn Johnson, as well as this podcast. And I'm just really excited for you guys to get to know her better and us, get kind of a front row seat to our conversations because there's something special. Loryn, thanks for being here today.
I am so excited, Dakota. This has been a very long time coming, and I'm really excited that we put this on the calendar.
Yes, because we know that is the only way, even with a
That's the only
dear
way.
friend, that is the only way to make sure things happen is you put it on the calendar, you make a plan.
Yes, that is the phase of life we are in, and bless it. I am so happy about it, and I love it. But if it does not go on that calendar, it is not happening.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I just appreciate that you get it. It's like, hey, we need to schedule a Zoom call to have 30 minutes of girl time instead of just being
Yes.
like, oh, we're gonna, it's like that's gonna be that's what we have to do. And so having a friend that gets that and understands it is very, very helpful. Okay. With this being our first episode, I would love if we could start off with you sharing your cowgirl roots because so much has come kind of full circle to where you are today because of those roots. So let's just start there.
Yeah, for sure. I always tell people that I think horses have given me every good thing and good person in my life. Have they've really given me everything, and anything that I have in my life today at 31 years old, I swear I can trace it back to a horse. So I actually did not grow up, or I should say, my parents were not rodeo people. They didn't have horses other than when they were, just on the farm as a kid, but nothing competitive. And my sister, who is 6 years older than me, she got her first horse when she was six. So the year that I was born. So I did grow up with horses. I got my first pony when I was four and immediately started going to play days and doing all the things at play days. And that just evolved into wanting to be more competitive. So I started doing junior rodeos, and then I think I started reading a book series about an English writing, and so I did that for like 3 years. Whenever I was, I don't know, 12 to 14, I think, and that was actually really great. It really did a lot for my horsemanship and feel. And then from there, I high school rodeoed, went to nationals a few times in high school, and I did not go to college in rodeo. I just went to college, but I did sell my good high school rodeo horse, and that's kind of where I think my entrepreneurial roots started in, as a cowgirl and as a business owner, because I sold my good high school rodeo horse that had done so much for me, from junior high through high school, and I bought two colts, I think two or three colts. And then I just started kind of patterning those colts, and I would get them to the point where they were about ready to enter, and I would sell them, and then I'd do it all over again. And that definitely helped pay for some of my college. And it also gave me, that business mindset to put around it. And I think that's kind of where everything started to lead up to today.
Wow. Okay. So let's go back and if you'll share with our listeners kind of what your main event is, or if you competed in multiple events, in junior high and high school,
Yep.
but what you really focused on, and then walk us through that decision process of when you decided to sell that good horse. Because when you've been with one that long and you're winning and doing well, I want to hear what, if there was anything
Yeah.
that happened, kind of what that looked like to make you make that shift.
Yeah. And now that you bring it up, I think that because, again, later in life, about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago now, I sold everything, again, and kind of started that process over. And I think that first time doing it was hard. That was
Hmm.
so hard. I mean, if you've owned animals or horses, you understand what they mean to you, especially whenever they've given you so many great memorable experiences as a child. And so yeah, I realized, since I didn't go to college, my mother said that I could not go to college to rodeo. Not that I couldn't, but she really advised against it. And for once in my life, I listened to her, and it was a great thing that I did, because I really loved the university that I went to, and I loved that and how everything worked out. But it was a sacrifice. Like, I had to do it because we were okay, off as a family, middle class, but we weren't wealthy by any means. And the college that I went to, I got some scholarships, but it was an expensive college. And if I was going to do my best in college, I wasn't going to be able to go to amateur rodeos, the way that I wanted to every weekend, and keep riding every day and just be gone on the weekends. It just wasn't going to work that way. And so, the word sacrifice, I think, is something that, as a young cowgirl and as a cowgirl growing up, and then as an adult, you really become close to. And
Hmm.
and I think as you get older too, the sacrifices get bigger and bigger. And that was one of those first big sacrifices that my heart had to make. And I'm 17. I graduated high school when I was 17, and I sold him that summer before going into college, I believe. And so, yeah, it was something that taught me about sacrifice that I definitely have used later in life. And it had to happen.
Yeah, I love how you bring that up about making sacrifices, because I so often I just don't, and I'm guilty of this too. Sometimes you see people in in a chapter of life, and it just looks so glamorous, and it might be, it might be that
Right.
moment that they've worked their whole life for, or they've made all these sacrifices to get there, and it's so easy to not think about the sacrifices and just look at where they're at now. And so I really appreciate you, sharing that with us, and what that was like. I mean, goodness, at 17 years old, that was a big sacrifice to make, and a big shift as you transitioned into, like you say, going to college, but really kind of taking a pause on something you'd been doing since you were 4 years old. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, the competitive I didn't it was very strange because it was a very humbling thing because I had this horse that I was accustomed to going places and showing up and, placing in the top 3 generally, whether that be like a jackpot barrel race or, a rodeo, and then I sold him, and I had a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, and you go and you exhibition and you spend money and you don't even get to enter. And then you start entering and you are at the bottom, and it's a real struggle. And so when I started, working with colts and training colts, I am so thankful for that time because they taught me more than any finished horse had ever taught me. Though I'm thankful for the finished horses that I had, the colts were a very humbling thing, and I'm glad that it all happened the way that it did, though the sacrifice, I think as you get older, you understand that in order to move forward, which is what we all have to do sometimes, we can't stay stuck in one place. And I think that's where the word sacrifice really comes into life, is that if you feel stuck, usually it's because you are stuck on not wanting to give up something that needs to be given up in order to move forward. And I think that's something that I've seen play out multiple times in my life.
mhm, mhm.
Asked me before like what my main events and that sort of thing was, and I don't think I followed up with that, but I mainly did barrels and poles. I had a stint of goat tying and breakaway roping, and they didn't last very long, so my main events were barrels and poles.
I get that. I had a stint of a couple events myself, and I realized that I was better suited for some other
Yeah.
ones. But yeah, you are one. Regardless, I'm sure you are quite a hand at all of them. But when I think of you, I'm like the go to girl for barrel racing advice. And I want to know, Lauren, whenever you did decide, because not I'm not somebody. I mean, and it took me a few years to be willing to like admit this to myself, and now this chapter of life I'm in with small kids and stuff. I don't find joy in working with colts. I don't personally. Like I like doing
Mhm.
groundwork and whatnot, but like when it comes to like just the consistent what it requires of you, the
Yeah.
sacrifice it requires of you to start colts and bring them along. I don't enjoy that part. And for a while I felt bad for admitting that, but I think that there's value in one, somebody hearing me say that, and value in you also sharing what what like encouraged you to go that route and then kind of where you're at
Yeah.
now. Because I just think yeah, there's just an opportunity for people to see that it's okay if you do or if you don't, or if you decide you don't like doing that later.
Right. Yeah, and I honestly think that, and I know we'll get around to it, and I don't mean to jump forward in the timeline, but I think, now if I were to get back into running barrels consistently, I would honestly want a fun horse just to go win on, or not necessarily win on, but just, be in the
Yeah.
money, whether it's the 2D, 3D, or whatever, just something fun to go, because I can't personally commit to the time requirement that a colt would have. And whenever I was in college, I actually lived at home periodically. I would kind of go back and forth, but my college was within 30 minutes of my house and the arena and barn and everything. And so it was easy for me to go home. And I lived at home part time. So it was not super hard for me to put that time in on a couple colts. It was more of a time commitment at that point in life to be gone all weekend
Mhm.
rodeoing and not home doing my, studying.
Mhm. Absolutely. And so let's jump into the cult starting. And you said it was a very humbling experience. They taught you so much, as
Yeah.
every horse can, if we're open to learning
Right.
from the situation. So what are some takeaways from that time of starting those colts?
Yeah, like I said, humbling for sure. It was a very big learning curve. I had to, reach out and get some help. And when I say started, I really did start them even under saddle too, not just on the barrels. I didn't send them off for starting. And as my little side business of selling colts went on, I actually did get a colt starter later on, because I did that from the time I was, let's say, 18 until I was, gosh, 26 or 7. So like almost 10 years I, was full time After college, I was full-time training horses and training and selling barrel horses. So it really did evolve. But in the beginning, I did just start the colts from the ground up and under saddle and everything. Um, I think patience, patience is
Yeah.
a big one. And being able to read body language, being able to communicate, being able to kind of understand where a horse is at, what they're capable of where they're capable of going and where they're not, like today, whether that's
Yeah.
today or in the future. I think that it taught me how to be more of a visionary, I think, too, and to make smart decisions because and I'm getting more into the business side of it now, but you have to understand, like, whenever you're picking out a colt, you have to be able to sort of envision their future. You can't just buy something on a whim. I paid attention to everything from conformation to bloodlines. I really tried to buy the best horse that gave me the most marketable opportunity because I was buying it to sell it. I wasn't buying it to keep it for myself. Otherwise, I would have bought every sorrel gelding, that came across because I loved them all. But, I think that just understanding what is marketable and what is not marketable and what is smart business decision is and what is not is something that really led me to where I am today, honestly. And then even being able to look at what other people's sale ads were like and saying, okay, never take a photo in that angle. That doesn't look good. How do I take a proper confirmation photo? What looks good? What doesn't? And that really gave me an eye for truly what I do today, which part of what I do is photography and videography of horses. So I think all of that started back then. And that's probably what I would take away the most that is now applicable to what I do today.
I really appreciate you going there. And I mean, my mind was already like, yes, she's talking all the things she learned that translates right into entrepreneurship and her business. But isn't it funny? I mean, that like every single experience we go through, they all just kind of build upon each other.
Yes.
And especially the things, I mean, with horses that you can learn. I tell you, the people skills that I feel like horses have taught me over the years.
Yeah, that's the
That
truth.
are so valuable for business. But unfortunately, in real life and corporate America settings, you can't, say, you know what, I really think you'd have a better shot at this if we could just put a war bonnet and a big bid on you right now and really teach you
Right?
how to stop, tie you to a patience
Yeah.
pole. But unfortunately, you can't do that with actual humans,
Right. Well, and that's a really great point. And especially as an entrepreneur, because I do think that I have been through phases in my own personal entrepreneurship where I'm like, trying to work with people I find difficult to work with. And I just want to, like I just want to fire them as a client. And I
Yeah,
can't, like, you can't operate off of emotion. You can't do that with horses either. You have to set
correct.
that stuff aside, leave it at the house when you go to the barn because there is not room for emotion whenever you're training horses. There just isn't. And I think that is also a great takeaway that does translate into the business world for sure.
So much here, and I'm just excited this is the first of many episodes. I get it. The idea of securing sponsorships can feel overwhelming. You're only one person, and this isn't your full time gig. Having to ask someone to give you money, a product, or service in trade for promotion might run a close race to that same feeling of throwing your leg over a fresh colt. Visions of an unpredictable ride and possibly getting yard darted feel very real and oh so uncomfortable. Nowadays, I get giddy at the opportunity to talk shop about the art of selling and sponsorship opportunities. However, this hasn't always been the case. I've wished many times over the years that I had a roadmap for navigating sponsorships and the challenges that can arise when communication isn't clear for all parties involved. That's one of the main reasons why I felt compelled to create the Kickstart Guide to Securing and Retaining Sponsorships. In this guide, you're going to learn my exact framework and strategies for securing and retaining sponsorships. Think of this guide as a roadmap that will help you get to your next sponsorship destination. Much like our personal journeys in life, each individual sponsorship journey will vary, and the road trip will look different based on where we're trying to go. There's a lot of information out there today, and it can be overwhelming to know which direction to take. While Google Maps and Surrey might lead you astray, this sponsorship roadmap won't. The sales strategies I teach throughout this guide are like Rand McNally, proven, tried, and true. You can find the Kickstart Guide to Securing and Retaining Sponsorships at dakotadonjohnson.com. Let's fast forward. Okay, so for 10 years, you were starting colts and training and selling barrel horses full time. You have a really unique story about how, basically your business now, you work abroad sometimes, you have connections all over the world, and it all ties back to barrel horses. So,
Yeah.
let's unpack that, Lord, how that got started.
Okay. Yeah. So, I as a lot of people, I'm sure your listeners can imagine, working, training horses, it's definitely more lucrative today in today's world with all of the breeding incentives and, money available. But when I was doing it, it wasn't. It was hard earned money, month to month, paycheck to paycheck. And there was just, I wasn't willing to do that for forever. And I knew that something had to change. And again, that goes back to that like sacrifice kind of word. And also just being willing to get out of your comfort zone and take big leaps sometimes. And I had started, I don't really remember exactly how it all began, but I had a horse, a mare, and she was very well bred. This was in 2018 or 19, I think. And I got connected with some Brazilian barrel racers. And if your listeners don't know, barrel racing is huge in Brazil. It's number 2 behind the United States for barrel racing. The world record is held in Brazil. There's a whole lot of barrel racing in Brazil. And I just started following some people on Instagram and social media from Brazil, some trainers down there. And someone had reached out to me about my mare, if she was for sale or whatever. And I wasn't willing to sell her at the time, but I reached out to that person's trainer at their ranch. And this is very strange. I had followed him on Instagram for a while, and it's wild what social media can really do. And I just was like, well, he actually held the world record at the time. His name's Evelino Rocha, and he held the world record at the time. And so I was like, I'm just gonna message him and see if maybe I can come to Brazil and watch him ride. I had zero expectations of him even responding to me. I had no idea if he spoke English or anything, but in the little bit of communication that I had had with Brazilians, I realized that not very many of them spoke English. So I went to Google Translator and I typed up a message and I sent it to him on Instagram in Portuguese so that maybe I had better hopes of him responding. Fast forward, he did respond. He was very kind, very nice, very welcoming and everything. And he invited me to, come to Brazil anytime, to visit the ranch, to watch him ride, learn and all of that. It was so kind of him. And so that was 2019. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to do it this summer. I was out of school at that point, out of college. So I didn't have anything really keeping me here. So I sent my outside horses home. I sold the horses that I did have that needed to be sold. And I went to Brazil for 5-6 weeks, the summer of 2019. And I ended up staying 6 weeks. Prior to going, I learned some Portuguese. When I got down there, Evelino, he did not speak English at that time. He definitely speaks better English now. But whenever I got down there, we were just like doing charades in the arena. There was like no communication. And I was staying in the house, like in this small home on the ranch with his wife and his daughter, who, fast forward now, however, almost 5 years later, they are literally my second family. I talk to them weekly. They really are truly my family now. And I am so thankful I got to spend so much time with them. But I had to learn Portuguese. That was really my only option. And so I did learn while I was down there. And yeah, so that kind of started the whole international thing. It was a crazy experience. It was scary. I had no idea what I was getting into, and I would probably be more cautious now, looking back. But there are just really wonderful people in the horse world in every country. And that is something that I have learned as I've been able to travel and meet them. Horse people, something about them, they are, especially in the Western disciplines, it's almost like a language, the language barriers taken away because you can connect through a horse. And that was one of the coolest things for me, was just that foundationally, all the horse people are the same. Doesn't matter if you speak the same language.
Mm, that's powerful, powerful. And I hadn't known you. Well, I'd known you a little while by that point, but whenever you were like getting geared up to go and stuff, I'm like, I just am so proud of her. Like, look at this, like, cowgirl gypsy, but in a very business minded way, because you were also doing some coverage. Was it for MBHA or Barrel Horse News while you were there?
Barrel Horse News, yeah, I
Okay.
had reached out to them and asked them, if they wanted, because with the language barrier, it's also hard for them to really get anything down there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I'll just, I'll take some content while I'm down there. I'm happy to send it back up to you guys if you want, any, because I was actually going to be down there through what they call their national show. It's basically their AQHA world.
Hmm.
Um, and so I was down there and I would just send content back up to them. And then they would write some stories and whatnot. And it also gave really some exposure to Evelino, which was really cool because he, even though he had the world record, hadn't really had the opportunity to have exposure in the United States. So that was really special for him and felt good for me to be able to do.
Really, really neat. And with that opportunity, Loryn, what were some of the direct kind of domino effects that happened after that? So you're in Brazil 5 to 6 weeks, you come back, you've made those connections. So, what are some things that happened right after that that helped lead into really the business that you have today?
Yeah. So, um, something really cool, I guess, that ended up getting me another client in another country was, I guess it would have been 2021. Evelino called me and he's like, "Hey, somebody called me from Italy. They're doing this international barrel race there and they want to invite me, but I can't speak English very well. And I just want to make sure that I understand them. Can you be a translator on the call for me?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So I get on this call and we are talking to them and I'm kind of translating. And while we're on the call, like more towards the end, I was talking to the other guy and he was like, "Oh, well, what do you do? Like, you're in the United States. We're trying to make more connections in the States from Italy. And we're also trying to bring some American writers over here. Do you know these people? Can you contact them for us?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure." I knew most of them on the list. And so that was sort of how I ended up going to Italy twice in 2021 for two different barrel races, and then last year they had one on the island of Malta that's just off the coast of Italy, and then I went over there for that one. So that was just a super cool experience, and now I have best friends in Italy. Actually, one of them was here 2 weeks ago. She stayed at my house for a week. She had never been to the United States, so I kind of got to repay her a little bit for taking me around Italy. I got to take her around over here, so that was really awesome. And so, yeah, like I said, horses, it's so crazy how connections are made, and they're just across the world. If you're just willing to kind of reach out to people and have conversations and be generous with your time, I think that that is also something that I would take away from my experiences, is that most of the great opportunities that I've had have been at times where I've just offered up my time and been generous with it.
What do you think 12-year-old Loryn would say when she hears she went to, help with the barrel race in Malta? I mean, ba basically before you were 30 years old? Or
Yeah.
no, at 30 years old? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, she would say, "What? Where's Malta?" Like,
And you
I
speak
had to Google
Portuguese.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to Google "Where's Malta" because I had no idea. It's, yeah. No, I that's definitely what she would have said, and also, "You're crazy," like, you know, I don't know. I've never really thought about that, but it is pretty cool. I guess I'm definitely very thankful that I've been able to have those opportunities.
Well, it sounds like, and then just from being your friend, I've watched you over the past few years just continue to step out of your comfort zone, to do new things, to push the envelope and be like, you know what, I'm going to embrace this challenge. I'm going to figure this out, whatever it is, whether it's the algorithm on social media or learning a new language or, figuring out how to travel across the country by yourself. I just love that and appreciate that about you, and it encourages me to do the same. Truthfully, it's the whole like iron sharpens iron, and you being one of my inner circle people. So I just can't say enough good things about you, and really glad that
Thank you,
the
Coda.
listeners are getting to get an inside look at one of my dear friends. So
Well, thank you so much. You know that it's mutual. You
yeah,
know that.
I do, and I'm grateful for that. So Lauren, as we said, this is the beginning of episodes that are going to come in the future. But I would love, before we finish this first episode up, for you to share just a little bit about your business and what that looks like, that gives you some of that freedom and flexibility that I know. I don't know a person out there who doesn't want more of that in their life. So I'll say, all of
Right.
our listeners, and what that looks like.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So, like you said, in the beginning, it is a full scope marketing agency. And so over time, it's just skill sets, I think, because I'll list off sort of the services that I offer and then go from there. But so I do photography, videography, content creation, web design, graphic design, like whether that's stallion ads or just regular sales ads or something like that, email marketing, website management, social media management, all of those things. So it really is like the modern age full scope marketing is what I offer. And then from there, basically, now I have more just like set management clients. I would say in years past, I did more one off projects, being websites or logos and branding and that sort of thing. But now I have a really solid, fantastic clientele that I love. And that's more on the management side. So that is what I offer. It is mostly, I would say, 95% in the equine industry in Western worlds, specifically too more in the barrel racing side of things. And honestly, I've just been very fortunate to have started this at a time when barrel racing kind of started booming and the Western world started booming. And, a lot of money was being poured into the industries. And therefore, more people were doing marketing and more people were needing the skills. And all of the skills that I have are not a single one of them are something that I went to school for, other than writing. I have a creative writing degree, and I think that's something that I definitely use a lot. But I didn't have a clue how to operate a camera or Lightroom, any Adobe program. I had no idea what Adobe even was when I started. And I think I'm going into year oh gosh, 6 maybe or 7, I'm not sure. Because I did a little bit of it part-time with my sister, you know Sammy. So my sister also does the exact same thing for me, but we both have our separate businesses. Um, and I worked with her a little bit in the beginning, which is actually how I ended up meeting you. And that's maybe a whole story for another day, but that was just a connection through another horse person, I guess, or in the industry, another part of the Western industry. And then from there, I kind of branched off and we each focused on our own things. But yeah, it's all in the equine industry for the most part. And I think that there's so much opportunity too for other people who are willing to self-teach and learn. There needs to be more people do exactly what I do. And I encourage people, if they do want that freedom and flexibility, to take the leap, start learning even part-time. start following people. You can't even follow me really because I don't post anything work-wise on my own personal social media, and I don't even have a business social media or website. And that's actually a testament to how much work there is in the industry. The ironic thing is that I don't even have to market for myself because it's very organic, word of mouth. Everybody needs marketing, and we need more people in the industry that do exactly what I do. So if there's anyone out there that has interest in that, I would say it is a fantastic place to go right now.
Well, and from the lens of someone who hires you, that pays you to help them with their business, hands down, my favorite thing about working with you, or favorite things I should say, are number one is it's a one-stop shop. And while there are certain things that you've been like, hey, maybe like now that I have Katie helping me with certain parts of this podcast, that wasn't something that you could take on. You told me that, but like outside of that, from the branding to the website design to understanding parts about the algorithm, like all the things, like I love having one person that I'm talking to. And not just any person, but somebody who like understands the Western industry, understands my goal, as a woman in the Western industry and who I'm talking to. Like because you are, that person. You get it. And that's really been really, really important to me. And I'm just so thankful. I don't think that I would have had as much success that I feel like I have and been able to hit some of those personal goals within this podcast as well as with Dakota Dawn Johnson if the branding there, if I hadn't had you in my corner, you understand, and the things that you don't understand you're like, I'll figure it out, we can do this. And so it
Yeah,
really, yeah, it just brings such a level of ease as a business owner to be able to deal with one person.
yeah, I think that's actually, I would say, the number one thing that I would tell people too. And I'm glad that you wrapped that up so nicely because I didn't. But what my sister is the same as me. We're very fortunate in that we don't have to market ourselves, and I do think it is because we are a what I call a full scope marketing agency, but we're even more than that. We're media too and design too. So it's like marketing, media, and design. And though marketing itself kind of includes design and media, a lot of agencies have to outsource the graphic design or they have to outsource the photography and videography. And I think that it's because both my sister and I in our businesses, we do all of that, though it is somewhat overwhelming and time consuming and everything. And now I do have some people that work for me and that I kind of outsource to. But because I offer all of that, let's say a person needs a new website or they need rebranding, they can come to me and I can do that. But I can also go take all of the photo video for their new website. I can go take their sale photos. I can go take their stallion photos. I can go, do all of that. And then I can take it all the way to like creating the reel, posting the reel, sending in the stallion video ad to Pink Buckle, to Ruby Buckle, to all of these places that the stallion incentives. I can do all of that for them. So then they don't have to go find the email from the logo designer. They don't have to go find the video or the photos from the videographer or the photographer. And I think that is something that has allowed us to have a lot of work, and it makes it very nice for the client, like you said. But it also makes it to where we need more of those people, because I do think that photography and videography, if you are a photographer or a videographer, that is fantastic. But as you would know, like it's a pretty saturated market, or it can be, like there's more competition if you're just a photographer. You have to compete with a lot more people. And same as a videographer, or same as a designer, or for websites or what have you. But whenever you offer multiple things, it just makes it very convenient for the client to not have to deal with multiple people and have to wait on multiple people. So I do think that if someone were to get into what I do, that I would advise them to learn multiple skill sets so that they can offer multiple things that sort of cohesively go together.
Solid, solid advice right there. And y'all, she is I'm telling you, wealth of knowledge, somebody that I'm just so thankful to have on my team. And Loryn, thank you for your time, but also being willing to do more of these recordings in the
Yeah,
future.
I'm so excited. It's going to be an
Yeah.
awesome 2024. We've been really trying to do this for a while, and I'm just excited we got the ice broke and we got the first one done. And now I'm already looking forward to the second one because there's about 10 different tangents that I had to avoid going off on
Oh, I know,
whenever
me
I was
too.
talking because I was trying so hard to stay on task.
Yes, that is not necessarily mine or Lauren's gifting is staying like we I think the thing is when you get around somebody that can follow your conversations going from like a ping pong, deal back and forth. It it's just like you get it, but then I'm like, okay, I need to rein it in. I need to try to stay, on task here. But I think we
So we
did
can get
pretty.
something done instead of
Yeah.
just creating more work for ourselves, because that's
Oh.
usually what we do is we just think of a bunch of ideas that all sound great and we want to do them all. So yeah, I'm really excited about these though, and I'm excited we got this one done.
Yes, me too, friend. Well, you know how this works. You know
I
how we
do.
end every episode. So I would love to know, in your own words, Lauren, what does the cowgirl state of mind? What's that mean to you?
Yeah, and you kind of already touched on it, and I don't think I know this answer won't surprise you at all because we have talked about it so much, but I do think it is the figure it out mentality. You and I have talked about that for years, and I
Hmm.
think fundamentally the cowgirl state of mind, it is knowing how to move forward when you're standing in front of a big wall, there looks like there's no way over, around, or through, and you don't just stand there and look up and hope. You pull up your bootstraps and you figure it out. You know that there's a solution and you're not willing to wait on it to come to you. You're going to go find it. And so I think that that is what I consider to be the foundation of the cowgirl state of mind, is just someone who is willing to figure it out no matter what and to make progress and forward motion. I think that is how they pioneered the West. If we're being honest, that's just the cowboy state of mind, cowgirl and cowboy state of mind to me.
That makes my heart smile, and I just want to give you like a big fist bump through the screen right
Yes, right.
now. Well, thank you so much, Lo, for being on the podcast. I look forward to the future.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Coda, so much for having me.
Thank you for spending your time with me on the Cowgirl Confessions podcast. I'm so glad y'all stopped by. If you could take a moment to share this episode and tag us on social media, I'd be happier than a cowgirl in a sea of buy one, get one vintage turquoise. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode. New episodes will be released bi-monthly. Please leave us a review if you feel so led by going to iTunes. Your feedback will really help us breed the idea of grabbing life by the horns with a cowgirl state of mind into women across the globe. Some that may have never even had the privilege to throw their leg over a horse, but could most certainly use the cowgirl state of mind while navigating life. Thanks again, y'all. Until next time, keep pursuing your dreams with that all go and no woe mentality. Remember, you're writing a story that's worth saddling up for, sister.